Welcome, everyone, to another episode of Coffee with Sales Engineers. I am so excited today to be learning from Gal Oppenheimer. Gal, welcome to the podcast.
Yeah, excited to be here.
This audience knows that I really try to bring unique use cases into how people start their journey out of college and make their way into sales engineering. Sometimes sales engineering falls in our lap and we're like, oh, why didn't this happen 5 years ago? Just looking through, Gal, your LinkedIn and the conversations we've had in the past, what a unique set of experiences you've had, from martial arts to theater, dance, through product marketing, support engineering, and all the way now, not just in sales engineering, but building and growing an SE team as a leader. I would love to tap into give us a little bit of a memory lane journey into that journey and some insights into that.
Yeah, my journey, I would say, starts probably in 2009. I was still a sophomore in college, figuring out what I wanted to do over the summer. One of my friends from middle school, his mom was working at a company called VMware. Everyone knows them now, but they were around 4,000 or 5,000 people at the time. So they were already a big company, but a much smaller company than they were today. And I applied for a product marketing internship. And she referred me internally, went through the interviews, got the summer job. By the time the summer started, the hiring manager who hired me had decided to leave to start his own company. I had a different manager. And then about a month before my internship was over, Neha, who is our CEO at Contentstack, pivoted teams within VMware and took over the role. So she was my manager for a couple weeks before I went back to school. And then the next year, I loved the same team at VMware, came back, was Neha's intern for the summer. And at the end of the summer internship, they were able to get budget to hire me part-time through the school year. So my senior year of college, I was working, I think it was like 15 or 20 hours a week at VMware, doing sort of social media marketing, that kind of stuff, back when it was a very different world than what social media and marketing is today. At the end of the school year, they weren't able to get budget to hire me full-time. Looking back, it's probably one of the biggest hidden blessings, because I loved my job there, but I would have entered corporate America very quickly and it would have been hard to get out. And so I finished school, found a job. It wasn't the right job for me. I was doing some freelance server work at a company I had worked with in high school. And then rolling into the beginning of 2012 and in 2011, I had dinner with Neha, and she had started a company with her co-founder Nishant called Raw Engineering. It wasn't even an interview. It was more, hey, we need to expand the team. And I was like, hey, I don't know what I'm doing. I need to do something else, and joined as a product manager, mobile product manager at first. At the time, I was the first employee here in North America. We had an engineering team around 20, 25 people in India, and grew from there. So learned everything I was doing there. We were building mobile applications for companies like TIBCO, VMware, and all those pieces, or all those kind of companies, and growing from there, growing the team out. And out of our experience using the software, we started building our own solutions. Just like most service companies, you build your own packages to make using what's out there easier. And we kept adding functionality. And then from that, we started building our own products. And that was what created kind of our first product, Built.io, and then Contentstack. And the team slowly started growing. A couple of years later, like Greg, who is our head of customer success, joined the team. And then as we were growing out, we were a services company with some products, and we were building out the products. And then what we realized was that we really just needed to double down on the products, and doing all of it at once was just too much for a company our size to do. So in 2018, we split 3 different companies. I joined the Contentstack team alongside a lot of the business team and engineering team. At the time, we were figuring out what did we need in the new companies, what were the new slots. And I had architected, as part of my product management role with the customers we were working with, some of the most complicated deployments on top of Contentstack. And so the thinking being, hey, like within the business team, you know how to use the system better than anyone else. You should show people how it works and help sell to them as a sales engineer. Not only did I not really know what a sales engineer was, but I hated salespeople. So I was like, yeah, I'll do this, but I don't want to have sales in my title. So I was a solutions architect. because a lot of times if you're talking to a developer or an architect, you can't trust the salesperson. Their goal is to sell
Right.
something to you, not to solve your problem. Part of why I was succeeding was I was always working with the customer and helping them solve their problem. And so spun out, came from there, had an amazing sales leader who had been a sales engineer before moving into sales formally, learned a lot from there on the job. I was me, our sales leader, two other AEs, and we kept growing from there. Kind of became a manager, hired someone, and slowly began growing the team. Realized I needed to learn a lot of things now that my role was expanding. So I was able
Yeah.
to, through Contentstack, get a coach, learn better how to be a successful manager and how to coach my team. Grew the team from there. And fast forwarding, skipping a lot, now I have a team. I have two managers, one for international, one for Americas, and each of them have large teams of 5 or 6 individuals of SCs. Um, Within Contentstack, we keep our pre-sales team alongside our post-sales architecture team within one organization. We call them the technical solutions organization, because while our skill sets from how we work with customers and prospects and what our goals are very different, the skill set and knowledge and necessary things from a technical perspective are very similar. Like we all need to know how to build on the platform, need to be enabled on our new features. And in one case, you're helping inspire someone in how to use the platform to achieve their goals in their company. And in the other situation, you're helping them do that implementation. And so it's allowed us to streamline a lot of things across working with the organization as we're continuing to grow. So
That's a
very brief overview. I had never heard of being an SC. I was an SC for probably at least 6 months before I even met another SC at another company. Looking back, I wish there was a playbook, like knowing about RFP software. If I could have known about RFP software in the beginning of 2018 and not at the end of 2019, it would have saved probably 300 hours of my time in 2018, so in 2019. So lots to learn from there. And so excited to help people learn from my successes.
What was that transition from more of the product marketing into product management? Just because you had technical background?
So in college, I majored in economics, minored in computer science. I was honestly a very mediocre engineer, but I understood systems very well. I could grasp different technologies and outline how they need to connect or achieve goals. But when it
Mhm.
came to actually building or implementing it, I was helpless. It's not my skill set. But
Right.
understanding how the systems work, was something an issue with APIs? Was it a RAM issue? Do we need more processing time? Where things sat was what I understood. I did from day one, and this is one of the biggest important skill sets I think for an SC is I could take something very technical, interpret it, simplify it, and translate it into a business forum. At the time, we were a service organization working with marketing teams. Either we were helping them come to the cloud. So it'd be like getting their website into a new CMS on the cloud or helping them build their first mobile application. And so we're working with business users who all have iPhones, all have computers, know what they want, but getting those needs in a way that we could then design and get to an engineering team to build. That translation was where my superpower was.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
it's looking back, like having a 22-year-old work with someone who's been in the industry for 30 years and tell them like, no, this is how you build a mobile application and this feature is the most important thing. I know you're really excited about this other thing, but actually we're not going to build that for you. I don't know how I did it, but that was what I was doing in the first few years. It was a lot of fun.
Because you could translate, you could
Mhm.
speak the language on both sides. As a product manager, you had the technical chops and the engineering background. And being able to relate to that audience, being able to build trust with that audience, like you were saying, right? You somehow convince them not to focus on that, build this first, build it this way first, kind of thing, right? Versus
Mhm.
you actually becoming an engineer and developing that stuff, right? So your strength was
Yeah.
really in the guidance, and that's what sales engineering ends up being, where oftentimes we are speaking to a technical audience and
Mhm.
that salesperson is trying to connect to the business buyer, and
Yeah.
both the AE and the SC together can come to an outcome that's a win for the
Mhm.
company, because most decisions are not just based on business or technology. It has to be a combination of those two. I want to dig into that overlap between product management and sales engineering, because
Yeah.
it's not well understood in the industry. There's definitely a lot of overlap, even in the personalities of product managers and sales engineers. I personally know some SCs who have become product managers. You're obviously a product manager who became an SC. But before we go into that, how do you think about sales now? You mentioned you didn't want to go into sales back then because you didn't want to have sales in your title. What's changed?
Yeah, I think the biggest thing is that the company I work at and the sales team we work as a part of, I think we've all seen um it all just comes from the company. If you have a company whose sole goal is to sell, you're gonna sometimes sell things you shouldn't sell. If you have a company whose goal is to inspire and enable customers and just really help companies build things they weren't able to build before, selling is part of the journey to get there, but that's the ultimate goal. And those kind of styles and personalities come from the origin of the company, and it comes from the leadership team of the company. And so we were a originally a professional services company, and our success was people would turn to us after one or two other services organizations had failed them, and they were behind their deadlines and they were behind the timelines, and somehow we would come in and we would launch like on time or 4 days late. And the only way you can do that is always being focused on how do we help the customer reach their goals, and like we'll do what we need to do to get there. And that mentality and that style of wanting to enable customers really sits today in Contentstack. And so like we will never sell someone something they don't need. Like we've had times where we go, hey, like this is a really cool project. Contentstack is not the right platform for that. You
Right.
need this other platform. I'm not an expert in that space. Here are two technologies that are leaders according to Gartner and Forrester. Go take a look at that. And while yes, if it's a Fortune 100 customer, it is very painful to say, hey, we're not right for this opportunity. It helps build that trust, and that's what's important. It also means when they do have the right opportunity, they come back and go, hey, you said this is the kind of stuff Contentstack can do. I actually need that now. Let's go talk.
They remember.
And we're able to come at, and that's our goal behind what we want to do.
See, I love that because I wanted to pick on that a little bit because I do know that a lot of listeners that are not in sales engineering yet, sales does have a bad rep, right? And I think SCs that have worked alongside sales long enough recognize that there's, just like in every profession, right? There's good sales and great sales, and there's bad sales. And I feel like SCs carry this higher burden of making good sales in a company, right? We're not the way our compensation is aligned, right? The way we're incentivized, the way we are recognized within companies is not necessarily for winning the biggest deal, but winning deals that end up becoming lifelong customers. But when you see that good part of sales, like you're defining at Contentstack, it's fun, right?
Yeah.
Because you're part of building that dream and that vision and helping buyers realize. And I know there's a lot of narrative right now around, let's not focus about the selling process. Let's focus instead on the buying process. And I think that buying process forces you to think from your prospect's point of view. What do they need to make this decision versus what do you need to tell them and sell them to make this decision? I'm glad to hear your perspective is different now.
Yeah.
Because I do believe that sales and SC relationship and us being fully aligned, having empathy for each other, having respect for each other, empowering each other, all of that is so important to when that duo of the AE and SC works as magic, right? Let's go to your product management side. I'm so interested in when SCs go into product management, they bring this level of, I understand the customer because I've been selling to them. And a lot of product managers, unfortunately, are not set up to spend a lot of time with customers or prospects, right? They're spending a lot of time with engineering. What were some of the things that you learned as you shifted from having a product management mindset to now working with prospects and selling them the vision of your product?
Yeah, I think they're good questions. I think the biggest piece is as a product manager, you are building these ideals that are meant to go across either entire industries or entire customer bases. Like you're never thinking of one company's individual's needs because you can't keep building and changing your product or prioritizing or creating features based on one team's need. As the prospect, like to be frank, you don't care what anyone else needs. You just
That's
know what
right.
you need and what you want. And as a sales engineer or also even a solutions architect, probably more as a solutions architect, one of your tasks and where you see success is by basically connecting the two and by bridging those gaps. Because you're never gonna find any product that does everything that a customer wants. Honestly, if your product does everything the customer wants, your customer isn't thinking big enough and they don't have a grand enough vision for what you want to do. Even if it's something as like posting tweets and social media posts, like 5 years ago, why not have it post for you or optimize your
Mhm.
times or all these things that you now can do in systems from day one? There's always more you can do in the platforms. And so what you learn and understand is when you hear what feels like a ridiculous need or request, understanding where that comes from and why it's coming in. And yeah, we need to figure out how to make this happen. That's that side that you don't see until you work with customers as a sales engineer. And I think from the flip side, we've had within Contentstack, we've had sales engineers who move from being sales engineering product managers. As a sales engineer, you always want everything earlier and faster and fully explained. And you have all these needs and desires from product. And I think when you move to product, you get to see the realities of, yes, you planned this timeline 4 months ago, but then you worked out and turns out like I don't know, AWS doesn't have the API you need, or it doesn't
Right.
scale to the level you need. Like in some of the functions we've built, even though we're not a Fortune 100, we're pushing the boundaries on what systems can do, what CDNs can do. And it's important to remember that sometimes you're asking for things that cannot be built yet because the technologies don't exist out there to do what you want, and then you need to re-architect and change how you implement it as an SC or an SA, kind of based on the realities of the world. And it's a humbling experience to realize that you're trying to build something that Google and Amazon and Azure just don't support yet.
And I love the point you made about product managers are looking at every customer, right? Their loyalty is to everybody on the platform, whereas sales engineering is this is what's most important for this active prospect that I'm working with. So being able to understand that, yes, I'm asking for this feature, but how does that feature is going to benefit everyone, not just one. So that's a great observation. You've climbed the ranks, have had a great sales engineering career, successful sales engineering career. I'm sure you wish it had started even earlier than it did, but
Yeah.
great. You're in very good company. The leaders, as you've grown up into more and more of the leadership, obviously the things you think about, the things you probably stress about shift, right? From an
Mhm.
individual sales engineer to a leader. What are some things that you lose your sleep over or you prioritize in your mind to focus on as a leader of the team?
Yeah. So I think the two things that I focus on the most, and this is not saying there aren't other important things, it's one, it's how do I enable and empower my team to be as productive and as effective as they can be? Like, what systems do they need? What tools do they need? Like, we've completely reimagined our demo development program and really programmatized it because it doesn't make sense for every SC to do things individually when you have so many SCs. So if I can give them better tooling or I can make them more impactful in creating customized demos or do it faster or provide better demos, that allows them to more effectively, which either means that we're closing deals faster or they can operate more deals at the same time. And
Mhm.
as you grow in the beginning, you can do everything. You can't just keep hiring SCs as you keep wanting to increase your number each quarter. So you have to learn how to be more impactful at the same amount of time. So
Yep.
kind of thinking through what can I do and how do I do that for them? And at the same time balancing where a lot of that comes from the team themselves. And so helping them balance between actually spending time selling and then spending time contributing into what enables them to sell, whether it's working with marketing, working with product. Like you said, DSC knows what the customer wants. So taking all that brain and knowledge we have and getting that to the product teams to help them prioritize what they're building or where the features or gaps or needs are, that area of things. And then on the other side is really helping the company grow and run and operate. So whether it's programs with marketing that will help us bring in more leads, programs with product that will help us build better features. As much as Salesforce is a pain to use, reporting and tracking and building in Salesforce, because if we have better data, better numbers, better metrics, that helps understand resource mapping, anticipations to make sure we don't have bottlenecks in the future, helps with understanding kind of what leads most effectively to close deals or where we want to spend our time and where we want to spend more time. to make sure that we're going back to what the team is doing to sell, that we're selling more wisely and more effectively. And so those are the two highest level categories
Yeah.
that I want to do on. And then the other piece is just helping with hiring and growth, all the things we need to build company culture, increase the people. We're now, I think, either close to or at 500 people, which is a very different world than where we were when I joined almost 13 years ago. We were under 25, and the company culture in some ways has changed and grown, but in a lot of ways it still has the same heart. And like I was on a call this morning with some of the same people who were like, they were my engineers when I was less than a year out of college. And we've all grown now. They're managers, managing engineers. And I also need to remember that experience is very rare. Like not many people, even outside of tech today, have worked at the same company for so long and also been able to get so much fun opportunities where every month I'm doing something new or harder than what I was doing before.
That's truly inspiring to see how everything you describe is your sales engineering function is really touching so many aspects, right? Different functions, interactions with different divisions. And that's not the case of a lot of companies. Sales engineering gets stuck and be limited. The impact influence of sales engineering gets limited to sales, right? Focus on winning deals, focus on doing demos, right? Whatever the activities you need to do, bring in more revenue. And it's inspiring to when companies and SE functions are having their influence across throughout the company. So great experience.
Yeah.
Gal, thank you so much for joining this podcast, sharing your wisdom. I love your unique story between product management and sales engineering. I highly encourage, if you're a sales engineer listening to this podcast, reach out, try to understand, get to know your product managers better. If you're a product manager listening, try to understand your sales engineers better. And I think when they work in synergy, magic happens and growth happens. So thank you for joining, sharing your insights, your journey. Really appreciate it.
Yeah. Thank you for having me.
Awesome. Thanks, Gal.
Thanks.